What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Opinions Vary. That's Opinions with an A. And we're going to watch a segment of The View. We have to. And it's with Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A. Smith has some slight TDS, but he's not as affected as some of the other people that are on regular television and in the media. He does make some good points. He is a very good speaker. And we're going to dissect this interview that he has with the ladies of The View. Let's just get into it because it's pretty interesting and it's going to give us a lot to talk about.
Stephen A., your thoughts on the election as it just went down?
I was surprised at how lopsided it was. I was not surprised by the outcome. Right. I saw the outcome coming from a mile away. You have to take into account, listen, we respect our president, Joe Biden, but here's the reality. He got into office. He promised to be a transitional president, to be a stopgap to pave the way for somebody else to come on board. Into the midterms, it was supposed to be a red wave. It did not happen. The Democrats was flying high. He felt the momentum because he was the incumbent. And instead of leaving, he decided to stay. When he decided to stay, the Democrats were in a quandary.
Personally, I never believed that Joe Biden was going to try and leave or was going to leave after his first term. Joe Biden has been running for president for almost 40 years. He finally got it. And I never believed for a second he was going to give up after one term. He did not want to. It's not within his personality. Joe Biden is not a nice guy. Joe Biden is a sewer rat, prototypical Washington, D.C. politician who will hold on with his last dying breath to the power he has gained through being in that system for so long. I didn't believe for a second that Joe Biden wanted to be a transitional president. Not for a second. And these people thinking that, I think that's just part of their problem. They just don't see the big picture. They really don't. They don't see it.
Because they were expecting him to leave.
Right. That's the problem. They were expecting him to leave. That was their first mistake.
Now he wants to stay. They're around him. They're seeing the fastball has dissipated to some degree. They're seeing that he's not what he used to be. And what do you do about it? You grease the skids. There's no primary for him to experience. You let him go on stage June 27th, and clearly he was exposed. 3.5 weeks later, he's forced and compelled to step away because donors to the Democratic establishment, they were not going to support that.
Joe Biden has been exposed since he was running in 2020 from the basement. Anybody, again, I say this all the time, with a shred of objectivity and common sense knew Joe Biden was cognitively declined. It has gotten worse, but Joe Biden wasn't all there in 2020, not even close. Not even close. And again, these people don't see it or they don't want to see it. And this is what happens when you live in a delusional, in a alternate reality. This is what happens to you. You get decimated.
And then Kamala Harris is inserted. I don't blame her one bit. I thought she did a phenomenal job.
Yep.
He has to say that.
She went all out.
He doesn't believe that. No chance he believes that. You get Stephen A. Smith sitting down, Stephen A. Smith having a beer at the bar. He's going to tell you she was a disastrous candidate, one of the worst, if not the worst presidential candidate in American history.
She did what she could, but you can't overcome that kind of situation. And remember, there's two C words that are incredibly important in America. Capitalism is one. Competition is another, because it's a metaphor for capitalism in a lot of people's eyes. Because you were inserted, even though you were the vice president and it was the Biden-Harris administration, you had folks who are independent. I'm not talking about those on the right. I'm not talking about those on the left, just independents, who said, wait a minute. She didn't experience the primary either. And the last time we saw her in the primary was 4 years ago, and she didn't even make it to Iowa. They used that as an excuse to point to her level of inexperience.
No, again, that wasn't an excuse. That's reality. She wouldn't have survived the primary. We even saw in this campaign, the longer she hung around, the worse it got for her. The more she actually spoke, the worse it got for her. She tried running her campaign from the basement like Biden did. It wasn't working because she doesn't have the excuse like Biden did, because you had COVID and you had Biden was an old man and the country knew who Joe Biden was already. Nobody knows who she is. She's been the most ineffective vice president of all time before this. And she couldn't do that strategy. It was people were starting to say, hey, who are you? What are your policies? And as soon as she started to open her mouth, her poll numbers started going down. So she never would have made it through a primary. She would have been out, the first one out again.
Then you got the war in Russia and Ukraine. You got the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, Hamas and Hezbollah and all of that stuff. And you had Trump using codes. Look, do you want her? Where is she? Where's the interviews? Where's she showing her stuff? Where's the tough questions? Where's the interrogation? And he leaned on certain things.
Is he wrong for doing that? I mean, as the American citizenry, shouldn't we expect someone running for president to go through everything Stephen A. Smith just said if they want to become the president of the United States? He didn't have to lean into anything. That's just calling balls and strikes, which is a term Stephen A. Smith likes. Call balls and strikes. I'm calling them right now. That's low-hanging fruit. She should be doing interviews, answering tough questions. This isn't anything you had to lean into.
And you knew people were going to gravitate to that because right now, as divided as our country is, fear comes associated with that. And because that fear was there, he fed off of it.
Yeah.
And people bought it, hook, line, and
They didn't buy into fear. They were seeing people. They think people are stupid. People were seeing, hearing, and understanding what was going on in front of their own eyes. The gaslighting never stops. We are not stupid. We know what we see. We know what we hear. We're adults. Everyone that can vote is an adult over 18 years old. And pretty much everyone over 18 with some common sense and a shred of objectivity sees what he's describing for themselves. They don't need to be told it or have it explained to them. This isn't rocket science.
Sicker,
Fashions
and that's why he's the
generally do.
president.
And Stephen, let me ask you, because I agree on all counts. There's a lot to unpack of what kind
I just want her to stop pretending to be a conservative and just come out already and be like, I'm a Democrat. Just cut the act.
of went wrong for Democrats here. I think a factor is the working class feeling left behind, not reaching out to rural Americans.
Sure.
But what do you identify as what Democrats got wrong? And it seems like you agree Biden maybe should have stepped aside sooner.
He definitely should have stepped aside. I said it a year ago. I was on camera. Everybody was getting on me. I said, he need to step aside.
You took some heat.
You remember, though, that he said, does everybody remember he originally said he was just going to do it for 4
That's
years?
right.
Yeah.
These people are so, oh my God. Whoopi Goldberg, you were one of these people, this entire panel, defending Joe Biden the whole time. Never once did you say, yeah, I think Joe Biden should leave. You know, a year ago, 2 years ago, I really think he should step aside now because he's lost it. Never once. And they come out here and pretend that didn't happen. That never happened. We were there all along. Yeah, we were thinking the same thing. No, and if you were, you didn't have the courage to say it because you're cowards.
That's what I brought up.
Right. And did you think that once you know who stepped in, he said, well, there's nobody, we don't have anybody.
Well, the point is that
That's right.
it's not about who you're going up against when you know you're not what you used to be. And see, this is where covering sports puts me at a distinct advantage. I cover people every day where it's time for you to go, but you're holding on and you don't want to leave. People who cover the world of sports are accustomed to seeing that all the time. And so now here you are, to answer your question directly, you are the left. You leaned and you were a prisoner to the extreme left in a lot of people's eyes. Well, guess what? Most of America doesn't operate on the fringes. Whether you're left or you're right, you're relatively centrist. You believe in compromise, negotiation, working with one another.
Something every woman on this panel has no clue about. All they know is I hate Donald Trump, orange man bad. No negotiation with him, no compromise with him. Never would they push back against the extreme left on the show. Ever. Ever. If you push back on the extreme left, you're a bigot, you're a misogynist, you're a racist, all that stuff. So, I mean, this might be the last time Stephen A. Smith ever steps foot on this set.
Nobody gets to get everything they want. The problem is those on the fringes continuously push for you to get everything you want.
Yeah.
They're not about getting things done. They're about getting their way. And if they're not going to get their way, they're about complaining and griping about it because they understand that when you are operating based off of grievance, that's usually what provokes you to get to the polls.
No, because everybody on the left needs to be a victim. That's how the left gets people up the ladder. The bigger the victim you are, the faster and higher up the ladder you go. AOC, perfect example. Brilliant at playing the victim. Brilliant. It's the only thing she's good at. But that's why she is where she is.
And that is why they don't mind feeling aggrieved and displaying and disseminating that kind of message, because they know people are going to gravitate to that. And as a result, that might get them to the polls, you thinking you're going to get what you want as a result of it. And in this particular case, the Republicans were right.
So you think the Republicans are sort of an extreme fringe party?
No,
at
I
this
don't,
point?
I don't.
Sonny Hostin is the most racist, delusional person on television. I'm convinced.
I don't think that they're an extreme fringe party. I think that they're operating against those they believe are extreme on the left. Like, for example, when you talk about the LGBTQ community, I'm a fiscal conservative and I'm a social liberal. I'm fiscal with my dollars. I ain't apologizing for not wanting to pay high taxes to anybody. I'm not apologizing for that, right?
They did not like that, even though they have the best accountants in the world that make sure they don't pay one dime more than they have to in taxes. But they don't like hearing that out loud on their show. I can tell you that.
But outside of that, I'm pretty liberal. Live and let live, okay?
Conservatives are live and let live. We conservatives have no problem with if you're gay, if you're this, if you're that. Stop. When it went off the rails and when it resonated with the rest of the country was when you started to force it on children. End of story. Close the book on that. That is why. It's, again, this isn't rocket science. 2 + 2 is 4. That's what happened. Conservatives don't care. Gay marriage, it's legal. Great. Congratulations. Have a nice life. I wish you well. But stop indoctrinating children. Stop with the men playing against women. That's where you went off the rails. And you just, the fact that nobody who there's, I'm going to assume there's very smart people at the top of the Democrat Party, right? How nobody said, we got to stop this. We can't, this is going to be our undoing. It needs to stop. Maybe they did say it and they were overruled. That's possible too. But that was a big part of their undoing in this election.
But you had folks on the left that were introducing some things when we got in the whole transgender issue, and they were
Bingo.
talking about bathrooms, or they were talking about males transitioning to females and competing against girls in sports and stuff like that. These
That's
are
less than
issues.
1% of the population.
I understand that, but
No, but yeah, maybe it's 1% of the population, but you're trying to force what maybe 1% of the population does onto the rest of the population, you dummy.
You know what? Adam Aaron in the NFL.
but see, but I think that's where the mistake is made.
Yeah, 'cause-
You're saying it's ridiculous. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
But most of the voters out there don't think like that.
But
But
that means they don't have the information.
Okay, but
This woman, I said most racist and delusional. She's probably the dumbest also.
90% of the voters don't have the information. If you're out there busting your tail to make ends meet and to pay your bills, and you're going to work every day, and you got a family to take care of, and you're in New York City, you're getting stuck 2 hours of your day, you're stuck in traffic. You understand? You got a whole bunch of stuff to go through. You don't have time to know what you and I know.
Maybe you need to listen
and
to the
others.
news when you're in traffic.
Well,
then.
again,
What's the news, Sonny Hostin? What, you? CNN? MSNBC? Is that the news? No, that's propaganda. And then most of the people, I think, have caught on to that by now. So they don't want to listen to that. They'd rather listen to, their favorite band, or maybe they'd rather listen to sounds that make them, chill out a little bit after a hard day at work. I don't know. But they don't want to listen to, quote unquote, the news anymore.
again,
Maybe
I agree
not.
with that.
Be uninformed.
Or you listen to stuff that's going to take you away from the things
Yeah.
that brings
Stress
down
them
your
out.
spirit. And that's
How angry she
unfortunately what
is.
most voters are doing.
Let me ask you this. How you want to speak?
No.
Sorry. Sure. Because Howard Stern says that he wasn't
This might be the most cognitively dissonant and bizarre and just out of, flex I've ever heard coming up right now with Howard Stern. And I'm going to get into Howard Stern after she says what she says.
confident that the country was ready to elect the first female president because he knows, quote, how men talk behind closed doors about us.
Okay. Wow. I grew up in New York, Long Island. When I was in my teens and early 20s, that was in the late 80s and early 90s to the mid 90s. Howard Stern was absolute must listen to radio. Must listen to. It was the years probably from 92 to probably 96, 97 was some of the best radio of all time. All time. I was going to college at St. John's at the time. And there are days where I would pull up. It was a commuter school. I would pull up to the school, park my car, and I got there at 8 o'clock in the morning. Howard Stern went on at 6. And I would sit there, and I'd get there. I wouldn't get out of my car. I'd miss my entire slate of classes, and I'd drive home. That's how good it was. That happened on more than one occasion where I got to school, was listening to Howard Stern, couldn't stop listening, and would sit in my car for 4 hours until his show was over. By that time, I missed all my classes, and I went home. That's how good it was. Now, her saying how Howard Stern was the misogynist. I mean, the definition of that. He had games on his show. I mean, the most degrading things. I mean, these women came in voluntarily to do it, but the most degrading games he would play, like throwing rings onto a spike, which the women were holding without their hands. Let's put it that way. You guys can picture it, okay? The spike that the ring was getting thrown onto wasn't being secured by their hands, okay? Stuff like that. Made his living, made his legacy, his millions on that, okay? Now she's bringing up Howard Stern as if we don't know who Howard Stern really is. Howard Stern, you want to talk about every red-blooded alpha male? That was Howard Stern's audience by the millions. And then he got onto Sirius XM, and he was still funny, and he was able to he really was, when he was on regular terrestrial radio, he was pushing the envelope. And he left it because they were cracking down on him. And he went to Sirius. And when he first got on, he was great. It was still funny. But something happened when he went on to America's Got Talent. And I think he started to see the writing on the wall. He wanted to preserve his career. He didn't want it to end. And he's still out there. But this man's become a cartoon of himself. But for her to try to just use Howard Stern to bolster their point when it comes to men not wanting to vote for a woman president is, as I said, the most cognitively dissonant and strangest flex I think I've ever seen, and they do it with a straight face. It's really incredible. Sorry for that long ramble. I just wanted to give you a little background, some of myself, and some of how I know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to her bringing Howard Stern into this conversation. It's really something, bizarre.
So,
and what the hell is she wearing?
So we're very privileged to have a great guy here today.
Yeah.
Tell her, what do men say about us behind
Well,
closed
first of all,
doors?
Say it to
Do
our
tell.
faces.
Yeah. Do tell.
I don't hide, so no worries there. Here's the deal. I respectfully disagree with Howard Stern, only from the standpoint that I wish he had been more specific. Why don't you say white men? Because let me tell you something.
And here we go. He can't help it. He's got to throw the race card into it, which is complete nonsense. White men will vote for a woman president. They're just not going to vote for Kamala Harris or Hillary Clinton. Thank God. Thank God. Neither did a lot of black men and a ton of Hispanic men. Thank God. And there's also tons of women that didn't vote for either of them. Thank God. There will come a time when a woman runs for president who's competent and up to the job that people will vote for. And I'm going to make a prediction right now. That's going to come from the conservative side. It's not going to come from the left.
About black men. We love our mamas.
I know that.
We revere black women. And when we're trifling, we know it's us. It's not them.
Right.
Here comes the
Understand?
simping.
So when he's saying that, okay, well then let's talk about white men. We have a white power structure that still exists in this country today.
Coming from a guy who's making multi-millions of dollars talking on television.
Understand the white populace in this country was over 85% at one time. It's now dipped to about 57.4%.
Yep.
The white power structure is still in place. So when we talk about
What's the combined? I would like to know what the combined salary is of everybody around this table. I want to know. Somebody can do that and do it. Please put it in the comments. The combined salary of everybody at that table per year.
When we talk about chauvinism, when we talk about women not necessarily being empowered, well, who's in a position of power to surrender some of that power? It's white men. So I think that when Howard Stern was talking, I can't speak to what white men are thinking. I can tell you this much. Black men, we revere women.
Then why didn't she do as well with black men as Joe Biden? in I think Atlanta and Georgia, I believe black men probably put Donald Trump over the top, or played a big part of it in Georgia and him winning that state this time.
Yeah.
We don't have any problem looking at a woman as a leader. I can tell you
Right, just not that woman.
that.
Exactly.
Next question.
We're back with Stephen A. Smith. Sarah has the question.
Yeah, you said you were, way back in 2016, before Trump ran for president, you were friendly with him because he's really into sports. And you said that the fact that he's a sports guy, which I didn't realize because I don't think of sports when I look at him, but...
You don't know that Donald Trump likes sports or has been involved in sports? The man's been around boxing, and he, I believe, owned the New Jersey Generals of the USFL. Yes, he did. Back in the 80s when that league, tried to make a run in competing with the NFL. That's why he's such good friends with Herschel Walker. So, again, they don't even know anything about Donald Trump. These people don't do any research. They're lazy.
But he was a guy that really ingratiated himself with a lot of different communities and what have you. And so some of the things that we saw in an effort for him to appeal to his base, per se, we didn't see that. And we never got that impression from him. And the reason why that's so important is that when you've...
Donald Trump has been consistent in his political views his entire career. Go back and look at his interviews on Oprah Winfrey. It's all the same. This is nonsense. This is a lie. This is a lie. Again, they're lazy. None of them at that table would even know that. They're just going to take for what he says right now as gospel, because none of them have done any research on Donald Trump or his past or what his views have been, ever.
Seen others come out and, dare I say, maybe not in support of him, but they didn't excoriate him to the degree that others may have preferred us to do so on the left. We deduced it to he's saying whatever it takes to cater to that base to get himself elected, because he will.
Isn't that what politicians try to do, pretty much? You telling me that Kamala Harris wasn't saying anything she could to get elected? She flipped on every position she's ever had, for even 4 years ago. She's flipped on every one of them. Isn't that to get elected? That's what she was trying to do, wasn't it? The only problem was she couldn't articulate why she flipped, because she's not smart enough to do that. This woman's campaign actually ended on this show when Sonny Hostin asked her a layup. What would you do differently than Joe Biden? And she says, nothing comes to mind. Okay? So, again, delusional, not in reality, not paying attention. These people have the memory of a goldfish.
Do what's expedient. So if you show him that I'll get votes this way, he doesn't care. He'll deal with the fallout later. The objective for him is to win first and then address things later on. That's all.
Trump has pretty much tried to do everything he ran on. With his first term, he had everybody working against him, and he still got a lot of stuff done that he said he was going to do. If the Republicans hold the House, this time, no excuses. Everything's got to get done, and get done quickly.
Always been his MO, and that's what we've seen.
Yeah. Well, I want to go back to what you said about black men being very comfortable with matriarchy, and I agree with that because, black households are often led by a grandmother.
Yes.
That's part of the problem. It's not a good thing. Let's not be proud of that. You shouldn't be proud of that. You need fathers in the home. That's part of the problem. Again, no introspection, just no delving into real solutions. It's just incredible.
Mother, a black mother. However, 55% of Latino men voted for Trump.
She always has to say it like with that accent. It's so annoying.
Why do you think that happened?
Well, I think that economically, they were looking at things. First of all, in this country, you've got Cubans, Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Guatemalans, Venezuelans, Colombians, et cetera, et cetera. And if you talk to the Hispanic community, depending on who you're talking to, they think differently. The Cubans think differently than the Dominicans. The Dominicans think different than Colombians. To some, the economy was a priority. To some, believe it or not, it was the border. You had some...
Believe it or not, you mean people that came into the country legally are upset that the border's wide open for those who can just cut the line and not have to go through any of the process that they had to go through to become a legal American citizen? Yeah, believe it or not. Yeah, that annoys a lot of people. That annoys a lot of people who did it right. Yep.
Folks within the Hispanic populace that were encouraging the borders to be closed.
They want to pull the.
But here's why that's so imperative. It's so important, because we're not Latinos. They're telling you that's what we want. Yeah. We had to stay online. We had to be online in order to get in. Who are you to bypass the line? And one of my friends, I remember he used this analogy, and I never forget this as long as I live. He said, "You like Six Flags, go to Great Adventures?" I said, "I have." He said, "Sure, Disney World?" "Sure, I have." "Of course I have." He said, "So you stand in line, It take about 2 hours to get on some of these rides because they're that popular." He said, "And right before it's time for you to get on that line, somebody jumped in front of you. What you gonna do?" And he said that kind of mentality is how you have folks within the Latino, within the Hispanic community, some of them, not all, but some of them who view immigration that way. So again,
how else should they view it? How else should they view it? In a different way? Like, oh, it's okay? I'm actually surprised the numbers for Hispanics in the country legally isn't 99% to close the border at this point.
When you think about the economics, when you think about immigration, those two things are what I have found has influenced the Hispanic vote one way or the other.
So the assault on Puerto Rico, calling it a garbage island, didn't really affect
No, Joy, nobody really cares that the comedian that 90% of the country's never heard of made a joke about Puerto Rico having a landfill problem. Yeah, no. So I'm sorry to, again, put a little reality into your warped brain. But yeah, most people really don't care about that.
It didn't matter as much as
in Allentown and in Philadelphia. But like you said, I'm Puerto Rican, right? So
and your family is, your ancestors are slave owners.
Hispanic community is not a monolith.
Absolutely.
I agree with you. And a lot of, I think, people that are of Hispanic origin from, let's say, South America or Central America, they're willing to close the door behind them instead of letting somebody else.
The other important.
No. They're not closing the door, Sonny Hostin. They're saying, go through the process I went through. Again, dumbest person on television.
One thing to recognize is this, and I've said this often. When we look at the economy, I remember when Biden came into the office, he inherited about 1.5% inflation. It ballooned to about 9.1% before it ultimately came down to where it is now, right? That doesn't mean anything to minorities. The percentage of inflation, and here's the percentage. Nah. How much does gas cost? How much does the groceries cost, okay? How much does rent cost? How much does my mortgage cost? That's what folks pay attention to, what's actually...
That's what everybody focuses on. You don't have to be a minority to focus on that. That's what humans focus on. That's what Americans focus on. You don't have to be a minority to focus on that. It's what everybody focuses on.
So when people speak, although you're right and righteous with your emotion and your righteous indignation, other people are saying we have the right to have righteous indignation when it comes to our pocket, or when it comes to our lifestyle, or when it comes to our environment. If we see crimes in the streets and stuff like that, we see homelessness and it's ballooned. We got a problem with that, and we don't believe this person is the answer compared to that. So what? They might have insulted a bunch of people. We don't like it. We hate it. But in the end, it's not more important than my pocketbook or my lifestyle.
But you know
that goes for everybody. I'll say it again. Goes for everybody.
what? That doesn't mean that we should not continue to educate ourselves to how our pocketbooks got to it. And that's the problem. That's what you were talking about. That fringe thing, if you don't know why your stuff is gone, do your homework. But you know what? That takes time, and it requires you to commit to do that work to figure it out. And they're not going to do it.
Pot, meet kettle, because you do no research. You have no clue as to how we got to where we are today. You blame it all on Donald Trump, who hasn't been in office in 4 years. You have no clue. You do no research. You don't educate yourself at all. But I digress.
Stephen A. Smith. And Sonny has the next question.
Thank you, Whoopi. Now, you've been asked, I hear, about running for political office in the future. And some people have said that they could see you running for president. Mm-hmm. Would you do that? You think you qualified to run for president? I mean, the bar is pretty low anyway.
I do not.
Can you rephrase that?
I just think that the bar is really low because Trump really had no political experience and went from 0 to 100, right? He didn't. Right.
He's only run multi-billion-dollar businesses for the last 45, 50 years. Now, he's got no experience in anything that would have to do with running the country economically or anything like that, or dealing with high-level leaders. Yeah, no experience with that, right, Sonny Hostin? You dope.
He didn't start in the city council and stuff like that. So the bar is low. Anyone can run.
I have said
no, not anyone can run. Actually, we just saw that not anyone can run because Kamala Harris was the worst candidate for president in the history of our country. So not everyone can run.
This on many occasions. The answer would be hell no, because I like my life. I'm living a pretty good life. But I must confess, I wish I could debate some of these guys. I'd love to be on a debate stage going up against these guys with the presidency on the line.
We will arrange that.
Then do it. Go.
There's
plenty of people that aren't politicians that would debate you, who have no problem debating you. Go debate Ben Shapiro. Go debate Charlie Kirk. Go ahead. Go debate Jordan Peterson, from Canada. Go debate him. There's plenty of people that could debate you. Put your money where your mouth is. Sure, it would be a great watch.
I'm half joking, but I kind of mean it. I mean, I have no desire to be a congressional figure or a senator. But if you came to me and you told me I had a legitimate shot to win the presidency of the United States of America, I would definitely consider it. But here's the problem.
So you want to break through the line?
Oh, yeah.
Right. I thought you said that was a bad thing, breaking through the line.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. For that, yes, because others have. Okay, including Democrats, by the way. Yeah. I mean, they broke through the line. What's wrong with me doing it? But I would be an independent because I don't like either side. And
Stop it again. Kamala Harris just broke through the line. She didn't go through a primary and get the nomination legitimately. She just broke through the line.
I'm not going to be bought and paid for. I'm going to do what I believe is in the best interest of the American people, whatever that may be.
Sounds a lot like what somebody named, Donald Trump. Sounds like that. Sounds like what he did.
And I'm going to make my decisions and I'm going to stand on it.
And that's what most people say that's what most people say when they run. And then they get in there and it's like, hey, you can't make that decision without us. And it's like, well, where did you come from?
But that's because they're at the mercy of the pocketbooks on either side because they know that it takes money to campaign, run the commercials, do it.
They're literally making the argument for why Donald Trump is the right choice for president, and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
Look at what Trump did in terms of the commercials that he was running against Kamala Harris. He spent millions upon millions of dollars, doing what he did.
Kamala Harris spent over $1 billion. And by the way, she's $20 million in debt after having over $1 billion war chest. She's $20 million in debt. Donald Trump, I think, spent about $400 million. So that won't be mentioned, of course.
And you need the money in order to be known. But if I didn't need it, please, it was just us going on a debate stage and
You're known. Get some people to back you.
Let's talk about the issues that affect America. Name the time and place.
So listen, what would
you will.
What's one of the biggest things you want to see taken out of politics?
Yes.
Lobbyists.
Yeah.
Money.
Why? Do tell.
Because
I agree.
because the politicians are bought and paid for.
They are.
On both
Especially
sides.
Congress.
When you look at the Democratic and the Republican national conventions. Look at the suites. Who are in the suites? They're billionaires. They're running the show. We all know this. And so as a result, not to be disrespectful to our elected.
Who do most of the billionaires back? Right now, most of the billionaires back Democrats. A few defected for Trump this time because I think they see the writing on the wall. But most of the billionaires back Democrats. Most of the billionaires are Democrats.
Politicians, but to some degree they are puppets. You have to succumb to the pockets of other people. They influence things. They're not giving you this money for nothing. And I don't want to do that.
That's right.
I do want to ask you one thing because some people are calling this the podcast election, the outsized weight that people like Joe Rogan had and some of these other figures. Do you think it mattered or was a mistake that
Wasn't outsized weight, Sarah. I think that's her name. Whatever your name is. It wasn't outsized weight. It was weight that was equal to their following. Their following is, I don't know, how many more times bigger than people? Yeah, how many more people listen to Joe Rogan than watch this garbage every day? I think it's probably 3 times.
Kamala Harris didn't go on his podcast?
I think it was a huge mistake for her not to go on Joe Rogan. The man has over 17 million subscribers. He was going to have a say. He refused to endorse any candidate before he endorsed RFK Jr. Okay, we understand that. And when you know that Trump is going to do it, I really, really believed wholeheartedly that wherever Trump went, she should have gone.
She can't. She can't sit with Joe Rogan and have a normal conversation. Running for president takes talent. It takes a lot of things. Charisma, the ability to, think on your feet, to connect with people. She doesn't have any of that. That's what, again, I'm going to say it again, the worst candidate for president in the history of our country. She can't go on Joe Rogan. That's why she didn't do it. Of course her campaign knows that she needed to go on Joe Rogan. They can't put her up there. They can't.
She should have been right on them saying, I'm not going anywhere. I'm right up your you-know-what. Let's get it on. She should have done that. But I don't blame her. I blame the people that were running her campaign. The Democrats tend to do this from time to time.
The people running her campaign, I guarantee you, if you get them in a room, told her, what we're thinking, if you can get in a meeting, be a fly on a wall in their campaign meeting, said, we really need to get her on Joe Rogan, but we just can't do it. We put her on Joe Rogan, we're gonna lose 49 states. That's probably what was going on in those discussions. That's what the discussion was.
Joe Biden wanted to run in 2016. You said it's Hillary's turn, okay? And then in 2020,
this I agree with, and this is very important what he's saying right now.
It was Biden's turn, particularly after he was successful in South Carolina because Representative Clyburn got involved, et cetera, et cetera. The Democrats, I believe, make the mistake of trying to tell us whose time it is, as opposed to listening to the American people tell them, this is who we want. In 2008, Barack Obama elevated. It was supposed to be Hillary's turn.
Yeah.
American people on the left said, damn that, it's him. We want him. And as a result, he was a two-term president. And if you're a liberal, you absolutely positively loved Barack Obama, and he's one of the most popular presidents of all time.
Again, they're making the argument for Trump, and they don't even, either they know it or they're not going to say it. This is the argument for Trump. It was after George Bush. It was McCain's turn. After McCain lost, it was Romney's turn. You remember whose turn it was supposed to be in 2016 for the Republicans? It was Jeb Bush's turn. We all know how that worked out. And what he just said, the people said, we don't want Jeb Bush. We want Trump. Trump is the living embodiment. He's right about Obama, too. The living embodiment of what he's saying right now. And it's still happening. That's who the people want. You think the Republican establishment, especially after the January 6th, wanted Donald Trump? No, they wouldn't even be seen in the same state as Donald Trump after that happened. But guess what? The people still want him. They're not letting the Republican Party pick the candidate that they want to run for president. And it paid off again. The people were right.
Because the people decided they wanted him, not the party.
Yeah.
And that's
in a great world, that would always be the case.
Yeah.
But whenever there's money involved,
well, it's our obligation to make the world great.
well, that's what I say.
Have that influence, have that charisma.
That's
Don't
right.
be bland, don't be boring. Go
That's
out there
right.
and
Yeah, don't be bland, don't be boring. Everything Kamala Harris is. And Whoopi Goldberg, again, at the end, they're not realizing that she's actually talking about Donald Trump. That's how he became president. People said, no, we don't want Jeb Bush. We're done. We're done with these milquetoast establishment, do nothing on the border, country club Republicans. We're done. And the people chose Donald Trump. That's what happened. And yes, it was supposed to be Hillary's turn in 2008. And she was out by South Carolina because of Barack Obama, who, as a junior senator, came out of nowhere. Again, like I said, takes talent to run for president. I will never discount, I cannot stand Barack Obama. I loathe his policies. I think they're dangerous, and I think they've done great damage to this country. But I will never discount his talent as a politician, ever. You'd be foolish to do so. And that's why these people are foolish. They discount everything good about Donald Trump as a politician, how he got there, because he is a politician now, and how he got here again. They discount it, just orange man bad. They don't see it. And if you don't see it, you'll never beat it. If you can't acknowledge it, you'll never know how to fight it. So I want them to keep going down these paths and just the orange man bad. Just keep doing it. Because next it's going to be either J.D. Vance or maybe Ramaswamy or who knows in 28. But it'll morph into that guy is bad. They won't see why the people want that guy. They've snapped to the point where they'll never look within themselves to try to solve their issues, which I'm fine with. Because the longer they do that, the more we have a chance to win and get this country back. Anyway, I will probably never watch The View again, but I had to because I wanted to not only just bask in the glow of their misery, which selfishly, yes, I did, but I wanted to hear this with Stephen A. Smith and dissect it a little bit, and I did, and I hope you enjoyed it. Comment below, give me your thoughts on that and everything that went on in that interview. I'd love to hear it, and please like, share, and subscribe. Continue to follow me at Opinions Vary.